Correct.
Something that was illegal when you did it is no longer a crime.
Sorry, it's not that they're still guilty of treason. It is that they can still hang by the neck till dead.
Because they were guilty of treason when it was still a
hanging
penalty.
offence.
A hanging offence.
A hanging offence.
Right. We're going to go for another break now. Once again, if you'd like to text in your questions or comments for David Noakes, please send a text to 87778 with the word EDGE and then your text. See you soon. Welcome back to On the Edge with me, Theo Chalmers, and my special guest, David Noakes. So, David, just before the break then, we were talking about treason and why the royal family would want to bring in a communist-style regime. We didn't quite get to the bottom of that, did we? I don't think.
All right, well, communism is favoured by wealthy bankers. So it was a Rothschild in 1917 who financed the communist revolution in the Soviet Union. And the theory behind that is that if you get a communist government ruthlessly controlling the people, the bankers own the government, and therefore the bankers own the whole lot. And the Queen is at that level. She's at the level where she can control through a communist government and own more through a communist government than she does now.
So she wouldn't be the Queen then of Europe or even of the UK anymore. She would just be, you know, living in Monaco or somewhere. Monaco,
yes.
as they'd have to rename it. Just having having lots of lifestyle,
yes.
and not having to open fates or whatever she does.
Yes. I mean, one really interesting thing is that the Bank of England is not owned by us. It's owned by a company called the Bank of England Nominees Limited. And it's exempted from the disclosure requirements of the Companies Acts.
Profits and loss and directors.
Everything.
And yes.
Shareholders are completely exempt. So we don't know who owns that company. And when an MP asked the question, why are you exempting that company? The answer came back, because certain royal personages do not want their identity to be known. Well, if it isn't our own royal person, I mean, surely it wouldn't be the Queen of the Netherlands that owns the Royal Bank of England. Surely it would be the Queen of England.
This was an actual question in Parliament.
Oh, yes, yes, absolutely, yeah.
And that was the answer. Surely they would say, well, that's what, that's what's so. Why would they say certain royal personages?
No, that was the reply. Now, the biggest shareholder in the Federal Reserve, interestingly enough, the American government does not own the American dollar. It is owned by 13 private banking families.
And this was in 1913, they passed the Federal Reserve Act.
1913, yeah.
Yeah.
And the Rothschilds family are the biggest shareholders in the Federal Reserve. They own the dollars, not the US government. And before the Bank of England went secret, the Rothschilds were the biggest shareholders then. So it would appear that the Queen and the Rothschilds own the Bank of England. So it may be that she has interests that are of far more interest to her than just being Queen.
I mean, maybe she's tired of being Queen. I don't know. I can't possibly speculate on her behalf. But it does sound like a bit of a boring day job, doesn't it? Going around shaking hands and opening things.
It's a family institution, and their aims are not our aims. The monarchy is an institution of the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha family, all of them, and their aims are not ours.
OK, well, what about the other traitors? You talked about traitors. You might as well mention some others that you feel have been treasonous. OK,
well, I mean, Ted Heath was obviously a particularly interesting case. Bilderberger, Deutsche Verteidigungsdienst Intelligence Department, an agent. Who are the DVD agents today? Well, we won't know till their deaths, but probably it's the likes of Francis Maude, the MP for Horsham, Ken Clarke, and in the Labour Party, I would think Miliband, Mandelson, they are the likely candidates, but we won't know till their deaths. And these people are literally agents for a foreign power.
But then surely that foreign power becomes this power eventually. If we are truly part of this huge Europe, surely they can then say, well, we weren't agents for a foreign power because it's now, you know, Britain is now part of that power.
Yeah, that's the nasty thing about it, isn't it? I mean, firstly, the EU is completely illegal under the British Constitution in every area. All 6 treaties are completely illegal.
So everybody who signed those treaties, like John Major,
yes,
Margaret Thatcher,
yes,
Tony Blair,
yes,
Gordon Brown,
yes, they're guilty of criminal acts and they're guilty of treason.
Why can't you just go to a police station and report them then? If that were the case, and
right.
I'm not saying that it is, of course.
Because they have moved up tens of thousands of people into all positions of power. All our law lords are corrupt. Our British courts are now utterly corrupt. It is almost impossible to get a decent verdict out of a court these days. There are more miscarriages of justice than there are fair cases. The courts are used to snatch 4,500 children a year from good parents by social workers. It creates trauma through injustice.
I think we need to keep off that subject because that's subject probably for another programme,
okay,
to be honest with
fair
you.
enough.
I mean, I've got a text here from someone called Doc saying, Ted Heath, a German agent, what nonsense.
Well, look at what he did. I mean, you know, who does our government at Westminster represent? What do? They pass EU laws, EU regulations, EU treaties. They implement EU policy. They don't implement anything that we want. We don't want this EU stuff. We've never voted for it. Between 50 and 80% of us in polls are against it. So who does our government at Westminster represent? Well, not us. It obviously...
Well, 2 million marched against the war in Iraq, and
yes,
we still went to war.
Yes. So Westminster obviously doesn't represent us. So who does it represent? It obviously represents the people it's acting for, the European Union. Now, look at Ted Heath. Who was he working for? He wasn't working for us. He abolished our nation. So who was he working for? Well, he was a Bilderberger. So he was obviously working for the European Union. I mean,
but Bilderbergers
saying.
are not just Europeans. I mean, Americans, you know, Clinton and Bush were Bilderbergers, or are Bilderbergers, so, and that's not part of Europe, is it?
No. No. The New World Order agenda covers both sides of the Atlantic. Both nations, they want to bring down both nations. The EU dictatorship cannot be built while there is a strong, freedom-loving Britain on its doorstep, because we stopped them twice before. They know they've got to bring Britain and America down first, and they're using traitors on the inside to do it. So, yes, in 1999, Britain and America, at the same time, deregulated the banks, knowing that they would create massive bubbles that would eventually burst and ruin our economy. And this is why we've not been allowed into the euro. Gordon Brown's 5 tests to keep us out of the euro weren't Gordon Brown's 5 tests. They were the European Union's tests to keep us out of the euro. Because if they want to destroy us, it's far easier to keep us separate in sterling and destroy Britain and sterling than it is to have us inside the euro. And when they try and destroy us with 120,000 regulations, they're going to damage the euro.
So you're
far
saying,
more convenient to keep us outside.
So you're saying that the next plan is to destroy the pound?
Yes. They have no intention of letting us into the euro, never did.
Well, eventually, I suppose, if they've destroyed the pound, then we become part of the Eurozone, is that?
No, no, no.
Well, never. We're always going to have a weak pound.
No, we're just going to be in poverty. The pound's going to be worthless and we're going to be in poverty. That is their plan.
Now, well, they've destroyed, well, I don't know who, but we seem to have lost our manufacturing base, our mining